Here is to the advanced image slider, that I am probably the only one calling it an advanced slider when it can just be a different or unique kind of image slider. Although I must admit, I like the background color more than the slider itself. It might seem cooler than it is, because while the slider design is great, the image quality is poor. So get the better ones. Let's see the images we are using that should be better quality, but somehow got ruined. But since I love these cars, I am not changing them. Time to start our VS Code browser. If you want to see more cute web development content like this, then you need to subscribe to my channel and turn on a notification bell. Let's just start the browser and write our short HTML code. Let's start HTML on a serious note and create div after div after div, because that's what we love. First, the slider container is the outer shell that holds everything together. Inside, the slider track is a flex container that organizes each slide, which showcases for background images for 4 different cars. These car images are in my images folder. I will probably upload the code for this whole thing, so feel free to take it from the link in the description. Finally, the navigation section contains arrow buttons for moving between slides. The left arrow goes to the previous slide, and the right arrow advances to the next. By the way, if you don't like copy-paste method, just press Shift-Alt-Up or down to copy-paste the line up or down. Let's do CSS makeup. Let me just zoom in the code for you guys and start CSS. Is this too close or too far zoom? Let's hope this is good enough and start with our universal selector. It resets margins and paddings for all elements, sets box sizing to border box for better layout control, and styles the body with a full viewport height, centering content and applying a radial gradient background for a visually appealing look. If I ever create a car website, it might have this radial gradient background because it looks good with cars. I am actually thinking of making a car website after my e-commerce website is done that you guys should check out from the link in the description. Slider container sets the dimensions of the slider, applies a perspective effect for a 3D appearance, and rounds the corners for a modern feel. Please tell me if the code is clear, or if I should have zoomed the code more. I would love to have your feedback. Slider track uses Flexbox for layout and enables 3D transformations with smooth transitions for slide movement. By the way, this is not going to be responsive. It's just a filler video to try something new to see how people will take it. Please check out the restaurant and portfolio websites that I have created from the link in the description as well. I would really appreciate it. At this point, just make your homes inside this video's description like seriously nerdy code crafter. Anyways, slide configures each slide with a background image, applies transitions for smooth scaling and rotation, and adds shadows for depth. It's basically the image styling of the cars, and since we are going to have a tilting slide effect with car slides, we have transition on transform that we will specify later. Now for the animation, where the slider container hover slide rule scales down and tilts the slides when the container is hovered over, creating a subtle 3D effect for added interactivity. I think this VS browser is making it difficult to see the long lines of code, so I closed it. We will see the CSS outcome in the main browser later. This odd selector slightly darkens every odd-numbered slide by applying a 90% brightness filter, creating a subtle visual contrast between slides. Now for the left and right navigation buttons for slide. The navigation container positions navigation buttons on each side of the image using Flexbox, so we can easily navigate through slides. We also have some hover animation on the navigation buttons, so we are using transforms here. Also, we should always have higher z-index for left and right nav bars anywhere we use them, so they don't get hidden behind images or other elements and are always on top of everything. Who put brackets around our GBA zeros? It was not me. Anyways, Nave styles the navigation buttons with a semi-transparent background, rounded shape, and shadow effects, providing a modern and interactive look. We have a purple background with a slide shade of glass color for navbar buttons. I feel like this video is actually showing more visible slider animation than the YouTube short we have about it, so check it out from the link in the description and let me know. We have both transform and box shadow effect on hover, so we added transition of 0.4 seconds and 0.3 seconds to make it look smooth. Now we will add the hover effect on these nav buttons. We enhance the buttons with a scaling effect and a brighter shadow on hover. After this, let's see the HTML and CSS outcome in the browser. See how the car slide tilts when we hover over the slide, creating a rectangular border around the slide as well. Also notice the slight hover animation on left and right navigation buttons. Now let's add some functionality with JavaScript. This JavaScript code handles the functionality of the slider. It begins by selecting key elements, the track of the slider, all individual slides, and the previous and next buttons. Make sure to get the classes right by simply copy-pasting the class name from the HTML. Also notice the difference between Query Selector and Query Selector All, because we have for slide classes, so it can't be acquired with Query Selector, but can work with Query Selector All. Now we create two variables. The current slide variable keeps track of the active slide, while total slides counts the total number of slides. The update slide position function calculates the horizontal offset based on the current slide and applies a transformation to move the track. It will also calls apply slide effects to adjust the scale and rotation of each slide, making the current slide appear larger and more centered while slightly rotating the others for a 3D effect. We will create this apply slide effects function after this update slide position function. Now, this is where we will call this function from the future that has yet to be created. To explain more clearly, the apply slide effects function updates each slide's appearance based on its index. It resets all slides' rotation to 0 degrees and scales the currently active slide to its full size, while scaling other slides down to 80% and applying a -15-degree rotation. This creates a layered effect, emphasizing the active slide in a 3D context. My explanations are going faster than the code itself, but I hope you guys get the point. We are just creating animations in JavaScript using style property to invoke CSS style properties in JavaScript. Well, that should make you love JavaScript, like how it can write other stuff too, as well as take values from other languages to add functionality to elements. Now for the previous and next navigation buttons. When the previous button is clicked, it checks if the current slide is at the first slide of index 0. If it is, the current slide is reset to the last slide, creating a loop effect. Otherwise, it simply decrements the current slide by 1 to show the previous slide. Similarly, when the next button is clicked, it checks if the current slide is at the last slide. If so, it loops back to the first slide. Otherwise, it increments the current slide by 1 to display the next slide. After updating the current slide, the update slide position function is called to apply the visual changes for the current slide. Just look at the final outcome of how pretty it looks. Please subscribe to my channel accidentally. I won't tell anyone about it. Oh, the final outcome looks sexy, so if you have been dealing with my dead humor for 9 minutes 6 seconds straight then